back. Good evening.
No one wants to sit by me tonight. Chatty Cathy over there.
Badly. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So you were really out.
We went 3,600 miles.
You have like an RV or something?
He's going to talk tonight too.
Yeah.
Hey, that's cool.
Yes.
If everyone could take their seats, please.
Where'd that come from? It was located.
Okay, I'd like to call the Ravenna City Council meeting to order. We are actually continuing the meeting from last Tuesday. We had to adjourn that meeting because we did not have a quorum. And we are now going to continue the entire agenda as we would have last Tuesday tonight. So we will start the meeting off with a moment of meditation and silence. If you'd all join me with the reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Greger, would you call the roll?
Mr. Calfee?
Here.
Ms. West?
Here.
Mr. Mostyn?
Yes.
Ms. Wood? Mr. Maravich?
Here.
Ms. Michael? Mr. Harper?
Here.
And we've been alerted that Ms. Michael and Ms. Wood would not be able to attend tonight. Could we get a motion to excuse them?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. You should have received the regular council minutes from August 5th. Are there any adjustments or additions to those meeting minutes? Hearing none, can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is communications. You should have seen in your packet a letter from the Board of Elections notifying council that ballot galley proofs will be available to view September 3rd through September 5th. Did we get any other communications in the meantime? Okay. Then moving on to delegations from the public. I was alerted that a Mr. Mohammed T. Al-Nouri wanted to speak. I don't believe he's here tonight. He was planning on speaking last Tuesday and couldn't make it. I sent him a message to invite him tonight, but obviously he's not here. We don't have anybody else on the agenda, but is there anybody in the room who would like to speak to council as a delegation? Would you please? Yeah, I remember you were.
I didn't give you my name or anything.
That's okay. If you
told
could.
me you'd probably be here tonight, so I figured I'd just come up tonight.
Okay.
My name is John Plow. I've been here many times before, and
I-
mostly time I'm here about trees, and I'm again here about trees.
Just if we could, we try to ask delegations to limit their time to about 5 minutes or so.
It shouldn't be more than 5
Okay,
minutes.
thank you.
I don't know if this mic is on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. Anyway, I live on Madison Street on the west side of town. And I noticed about 2 weeks ago that they were putting a water line in starting at the corner of Maplewood and Spruce and heading east towards Jefferson Street. And I noticed when they put it in from Maplewood to Spruce, I've got a picture here, and you can see where the water line was put in, and the trees are still standing. I don't know if you can see that, okay?
Are these on the tree lawn?
Maplewood is back here, and this is Madison right here, and this is Spruce, heading east towards town.
So these are in the
And
tree
you can
lawn.
see where the water line was put in. but they left these 2 trees standing. I measured those 2 trees, stepping it off from the edge where the water line started, where the digging started, and it was about 6 steps. And my shoes are about a foot long, so 6 feet away from the edge. When I went down further, where they cut 3 trees down, further down Spruce, I measured 10 feet. And this is a picture where they started cutting the trees down. I'm sorry if I mispronounce the name of this tree. It's either a catalpa or a catalpa tree, something like that. Frank might know the name of it. But anyway, you can see here where they cut one down, and then there's another one here they cut down, and then there was a spruce tree they cut down down here, right at the corner of Jefferson and Spruce. But you can see that stump real clearly, this one, and then there's another one here, and then the pine tree was down here. All of them were healthy. Okay, then they cut down, the alleged, Mr. Content told me they had to cut it down because they were going to interfere with the roots and the trees were going to be weakened and fall down. So there were 6 trees cut down between Maple Lane, which is an alley that runs from Madison to Diamond, from Maple Lane to Spruce, 6 trees cut down. And I believe those were all maples. And they were all healthy. And I didn't get, this is a picture of one of the stumps. And I think you can see, hopefully I'm not taking too much time. You can see from that tree was not rotten or anything. And then I took it, this was after they'd started cutting those down. You can see how many leaves were on the trees. There were a lot. They were all healthy, and they were sprouting leaves. And so when I measured from the catalpa tree to the start of the digging, it was 10 steps. So I'm questioning, what was the need of cutting those trees down? And then I've got a picture of that catalpa tree when it was healthy, and the branches barely go. Did I show you that picture of all of, all of
Yeah,
these?
you just showed us that.
This is the catalpa tree, which was the second stump you saw. You can see how healthy that tree was. Beautiful tree. And they're rare nowadays. And the reason they're rare nowadays is because they just don't plant them anymore. So there were 2 of those cut down on spruce. And I guess I took pictures of Jefferson Street where the trees were cut down to see where the water lines were, and they weren't along the edge of the road. They were from the edge of the roads to a house. And they weren't even near 4 of those trees that were cut down, not even near them. So in total, at least for that project, there were 9 trees cut down, all healthy. And I guess I'm a little bit upset. I called and left Frank a nasty message because he'd apparently gone down there last day before they cut those other 3 down on spruce. And I think they've been misled that the trees needed to come down because they didn't come down up between Madison and Maplewood, but they came down between Madison and Jefferson. And they were further away from the trees where they started digging.
So did the city cut these down, or did somebody else, like a contractor?
It's a contract for the water line replacement for those trees.
Yes.
Is there a process for the city to determine whether or not a tree gets torn down?
Our engineering department looks at those trees, depends on where the water line is, if the sidewalk needs replaced also in that contract, and that's how we decide. Now, obviously, our arborist takes a look at those trees, and as well as the residents are given a letter stating what work's gonna be done on their property.
Okay.
We didn't hear one complaint.
So the process that we normally go through to determine whether a tree gets taken down happened here. Now, just so you know, I mean, I don't know that city council has a role to play in this. This is an administrative process.
Well,
But your complaint is you don't think it was good judgment to take down those trees?
I think it was unnecessary. I've been watching a lot of water lines being replaced I've never seen that many trees cut down. It was, and my wife walks the dogs up Jefferson every day, and there was a young man she ran into last week who said he couldn't believe they cut all those trees down. He said, and I know, he said the same thing I said. He said, I know that if they do plant new trees, they're not gonna be anywhere near as tall as those.
Right.
And I just don't understand how that process works. My request is, don't cut any more trees down to put in water lines unless you hold a public hearing and with notice to everybody, including people like myself. And not only that, I think it's possible that the trees you cut down on Spruce were done illegally. Because I don't know how far you own from the edge of the road off to the side. But I know when I sued the Catholic Church back in 2005 when they were cutting trees down along the edge of the cemetery, that Judge Enloe ruled that if there were 2 inches of that tree on city property, they couldn't cut it down without the approval of the city. And so they didn't, because Don Kainrad was the service director back then, and he wouldn't let them cut them down. The cemetery, they had started cutting them, but they didn't cut them all down. There was the ones from, well, a little bit further past Madison all the way down almost to Jefferson, big trees that they're still standing. One of them was cut down this past year because it was dead, but.
So whose property
Well,
would,
the property at the corner of Jefferson and Spruce, I talked to the owner, he didn't want the trees cut down. Now, Tim said that everybody got a letter and nobody complained,
Yeah.
but my opinion is, if those trees were even 2 inches on his property, without him signing a written consent to do it, that was illegal, and he could sue you. And, he didn't want them cut down. They were beautiful trees. I showed you the picture of that catalpa tree. I mean, you couldn't get a more healthy looking tree than that. And,
so what specifically would you like city council to do in regards to this? Clarify
I
the
would
policy
like,
or
if
write a
they're
new?
gonna be cutting down trees to put in water lines, like I said, which I hadn't seen done before in the multiple years they've been doing that, hold hearings.
Hold
I mean,
hearings.
I mean, these trees can't be replaced.
How often does this kind of thing happen?
Once we open bids and award the project to a contractor, we send notices to the residents and schedule a meeting for them to attend if they have questions, concerns, meet the contractor to go over the project. We generally have 3, 4, 1.
And you
one resident.
include the fact that some trees will be,
Well, they go over the whole plan.
well, I
the
mean,
schedule
the
plan.
communication to the residents includes the fact that trees may come down or will come down.
Sure. Yep.
So although that's not a,
It's not a public
Hearing per se,
hearing, but
yeah.
the residents that are directly affected are invited to attend.
Some of the residents may not be the owners of the property, though. I don't know.
yeah,
They
that's,
could be renters. That's not a foolproof method right there.
And most likely, the landlords don't care
Maybe
Right.
not. Yeah,
because they
want
don't
to
live in
leave.
this town generally.
Yeah, that's true.
is,
I would ask you, I think it would only be fair, of the 3 trees cut down on the west side of Jefferson, there are no power lines there. And I would ask you to replace those with big trees. I know Tim told me there was a lot of trees gonna be planted
right,
this
we're
fall.
going to talk about that later
But,
tonight.
you know, those 3 big maple trees cut down on that side of the road, I mean, we'll all be gone before they get to that side
Right.
again. If you plant a tree that's 10 feet
Right.
tall. I would ask you to do that, and if you don't, I mean, there's a lot of people that are upset about this. You know, I would could potentially bring a lawsuit. I don't wanna do that, cause it's a lot of work for me and a lot of money out of my pocket, but I just don't think
Well,
enough effort's being made to cut down, to
Yeah.
save the trees. There was 2 more trees I noticed when I was riding down there today that were cut at 886 Spruce Street that I didn't understand why they were cut. And then there were 2 more trees between Main Street and Spruce on Jefferson that were cut. So I saw a total of like 13 trees cut down in a very small area of the city.
I think the best approach moving forward is if there's concern about the process, that we refine that, have it maybe, this seems like this would be a streets and sidewalks discussion if we're going to have one, since these are trees on the tree lawn, right? I don't know where else we would put this. I suppose if Mr. Harper is willing to, we could put this on a streets and sidewalk agenda. You'd be welcome to attend. In the meantime, you might want to think about what specific action city council could play in this. As I said, this is really an administration's function, but maybe city council could come up with a more refined process, or at least a communication process. I don't know about a public hearing. There's only limited purposes for public hearings, and that might be a little challenge. But anyway, we can get in touch with you and let you know.
Okay.
Is that something we can do next week, Mr. Harper, or do you want to put it on for next month?
Let's do it the following month.
Okay, so in October, and I don't know what night we have in committee meetings, it's usually the next Monday or the 2 Mondays after the regular meeting. We'll hold a streets and sidewalk meeting. You'll be certainly able to attend, and we can have a further discussion about what we can do to make sure that in the future mistakes, if mistakes were made, that they don't happen again.
Yeah, and just one more thing, and then I'll close. This catalpa tree, which I'm showing you now, you can see the branches only go out to about where the power lines are, which are pretty much right where they started putting in the water lines. From there, out towards the middle of the road, instead of there and in towards the road. So, my understanding, roots only grow to the edge of the branches. And so I don't think these trees would have been weakened at all if you did this digging. That's what I'm saying. It was just totally unnecessary to cut them down. They wouldn't have been a safety hazard. It would have been some more thought processes and more examination of the situation and where they were going to dig. And even if they were going to dig, to save that many trees, couldn't you angle the pipe
No.
around those and go back?
No, that's not actually feasible to do,
It
to
may not be
angle it like
feasible,
that.
but it certainly is possible.
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean,
Save 100-year-old trees, because right now, the arborist you had, is he here tonight? I don't know if he is. Okay.
No, he doesn't come to the
Yeah.
meetings unless requested.
He's cutting down a lot of trees, especially in my area. I don't know if he's cutting down as many on the east side of town as he is on the west, but I don't think so.
well, I appreciate you coming tonight and
Okay,
make
well, thanks
council
for
aware.
giving me extra
But I
time.
will tell you that if you're not aware, later on in our agenda, we have a sizable donation to plant a number of trees in various places in the city. So hopefully that's counters a little bit some of the
Well, I've been
concerns you
asking
have.
for that for 50 years, since I got back from Boston, so.
Okay.
I'll make one quick comment, a comment that the engineer and service director made. I'm very familiar with their comments. I'm familiar with them for many, many years of what they said, and it's the procedure that's been used for, that's why I can say it, as many decades on doing that in
Doesn't mean it's right.
in the individuals that are involved in the channel process of putting in water service or wastewater, whichever it may be.
A lot of policies get changed over the years when they realize maybe they aren't appropriate anymore. So I would think, maybe you ought to think about changing that policy if you ask my opinion as to what you can do.
We'll talk about that in October.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, well, thank you all.
You're
See you.
welcome. Are there any other delegations tonight? Please come up, state your name and address. I can't hold you to the 5 minutes, but we do appreciate it, brevity if you can. Okay, thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Allison Haynes. I'm at 746 East Riddle, the big old brick colonial that used to be the parsonage. My husband and I moved into that just over a year ago in the dead heat of summer. And the reason we did is because I am totally addicted to old houses. And there was nothing coming on the market in Kent where we lived. Akron would have been too much of an adjustment for our 10-year-old at that time. And I had pretty much given up the search until my daughter, who had formed a healthy addiction to Zillow at this point, pointed out this beautiful colonial. And I said, I don't know, I'm not sure if that's right. And then we decided to go see it and just fell absolutely in love. I'm not sure how many of you know the history of it, but that probably has not been remodeled or redecorated or had any interest placed in the landscaping or anything for probably 15 years, easily. So we sold our house in Kent, took some of that money, and completely redid it in historical colors and splurged and bought some of that good furniture that your parents have that lasts for 30 years. And we always bought the cheap stuff and so on and so forth. We were so exhausted from all of that to completely unexpectedly that the basement kind of didn't get addressed. There was all the boxes down there, the stuff you probably should have gone through before you moved, so on and so forth. So what I want to talk to you about is the three separate incidents in which our basement has been a mess. And you guys are going to be familiar with all of this. The first was in January. That came in through the U-pipe in the basement right beside the washer and dryer. We had 2 inches of black human waste sludge that extended for a solid, easily 500, 750 square feet. That basement is dry as a bone. It's not coming in through there, it's coming in through the drains. And we had a $4,000 or $5,000 bill with ServPro that we had to put in a claim with, that type of thing. It was during that horrible cold snap, so we couldn't even open up the windows to get the sewer gas out of the house without freezing ourselves. So that one in itself was really traumatic. There was a lot of stuff that we lost, and then honestly, we were so exhausted by that process that we didn't get down there and fully organize stuff the way we shoulda, coulda. I will tell you it's done now, though. And then August hit, and I'm sure, I'm just a newbie here, but I'm sure you guys, probably looking back on a couple of decades, would say that this August was pretty unusual. The summer, the spring, we kept asking neighbors, is this much rain normal? And they were saying no, because there was no flood anything on our stuff. August the 8th, we were the Saturdays. By the way, our whole family is terrified of rainy Saturdays now. But the 8th was our first one. And first came through, or only came through the basement drains in the house. We had a solid 12 inches on that one, and they were still the roaring flash flood waters that were moving, you know, boxes and tubs from one room to another. My daughter is a digital producer for WOIO, and she actually sent a reporter down here. They were covering our house, and then they covered the trailer park, and you can see it had receded by then. But so that then was, ServPro came back at $7,900 for our $10,000 deductible. We had to replace the washer. I talked them down a little bit, and then 8 plus 14, the 22nd, 2 weeks later then was the second one. Literally, the Saturday morning, I had gone down and taken the last few things that I was air drying to, you know, from going through everything that we lost, and put those into tubs, and I thought I had flood-proofed the basement, getting everything up off the ground, making sure the lowest level of things wasn't paper, you know, all this good stuff. And then on the 22nd, it started by coming up through the floor drains, and very quickly after, we had the sewage coming in out of the U-pipe as well. That time, it was easily 15 inches. So we have lost a dumpster and a half of personal belongings. Luckily, I was able to save photos by literally grabbing them up out of there and pulling apart the human wastewater that was on them so that they could dry out. Pictures from all the way through the kids. So, I'm not unreasonable. You're not going to hear something come out of my mouth that says, what are you doing about this? What I need to understand is what our options are, and what your options are, and what your plan is. I have studied enough of the engineering of the house and how a little bit from Tim, who's our representative, Tim Calfee, to understand a little bit of what's going on. So I'm hoping you could talk to me about, number one, is it legal or prohibited by code for us to go ahead and put in backflows to everything that contributed to the problem? And there are at least 5 basement drains that it was coming through. So with the severity of the second flood, it was all of them. and that basement is as big as the first floor. It was over 1,000 square feet. So first question is, are there any ordinances banning that? Second is it part of city code or city ordinance or habit of practice that downspouts then go into the sewer as well, increasing volume? Third is, what's the diameter capacity of both the sewer and water lines in that part of town? Riddle and Riddle and Liberty is the corner. And what are you guys gonna do? I'm fully aware this was a 100-year kind of thing. Fully aware. You guys can't be held responsible for massive flooding. But I can't have this happen again. We are literally, dealing with thousands of dollars that we can't replace because we're scared to put in a third claim with home insurance. And we literally seize up a little bit. My husband is now I can see his whole body tense when rain just starts to spatter outside. So 3 hours later, that's a little bit of the history and what I'm hoping to understand.
I don't know that we could answer your questions tonight. There might be zoning ordinances I'm not aware of, but it's really a permitting process probably that you'd have to get approved for the kind of changes you want to make. And I think as long as it doesn't affect city, infrastructure or your neighbor, then I don't know that there'd be any reason they shouldn't be able to do what they want to do.
You, as a homeowner, are permitted to install a backflow valve or a flapper valve, whichever you want to call it.
But
That's
would-
not
Would
prohibited.
I do that at the point that the drain comes into the house, or would I dig up all of the paths to those drains
So
from
that's,
the yard?
that is an issue that a resident has to
Determine themselves.
determine all of the drainage pipes that leave your house, you leave your basement, because you wouldn't want to miss one and have it back up, if you want to know where all of those tie in.
Is it your
And then,
guess that the mechanicals for our house are stored someplace?
unfortunately.
figured.
So we would probably have information at the main line for your sanitary lateral, but once the builder that built your house many, many years ago
Over 100.
connected to that, we don't know the path that it took.
Okay.
Unless I inspected that house, a lateral repair at some point in the last 24 years, we might have some information.
Okay.
But if there had been no repairs, we don't have information.
And backflow would need to go on both the storm drain part of things and the sewage part of things. Those are
So,
separate coming to the house?
Most likely, when your house was built, they tied the floor drains into the sanitary, the footer drains, if you have footer drains, into sanitary. Your best action would be to hire a plumber and ask a plumber to trace, potentially camera and trace
That's what I
all
figured.
of those lines and kind of map it at wherever the location is. And I've told many residents that so
Cool.
far.
Good.
Are your downspouts operating correctly? Are they clean?
Yeah,
Are they
that I've
filled?
checked.
That sort of
Yeah.
thing. So somewhere in the early 80s, EPA had stated it's not permitted to connect clean water with sewage water. However, in the turn of the century, clear into the 50s, a lot of homes were built that way.
That's what
But then
surprised
some
me so much. was
Some
that I had
subdivisions
both.
weren't, like the fairgrounds, for instance, built in the 50s, they were separated. So we, knock on wood, I hadn't had anybody complain in that subdivision. So
Okay.
even though it was built in the 50s, it seems to have been built correctly. But Anavar, who was just, Anavar Phase 5, they had an intersection that flooded, and they have retention, a whole 100-year retention pond. It is just amazing the amount of rain we had in such a short amount of time.
Agreed.
I
Okay,
was-
so if that's my part of it,
So we continue to camera our sewer storm lines and our sanitary lines, looking for issues. What our street department has been telling us is the lines that they're running, we call it running, putting a camera through, are clean. Potentially
has to be a
because
capacity or diameter issue.
potentially because we had so much flow that our lines got cleaned out. So.
And the force, I can tell you about the force.
And the force, sure. And yeah, our system wasn't designed to handle that type of rain. And again, I use Anavar that was designed to modern standards, it still had an intersection that flooded for 20 minutes or something like that.
Okay.
So
I'm
they
sure
know.
you know the amount of cleanup trucks
I
that were in that part of town.
I
You're
can't
intimate
imagine.
with
It's
all of it, I'm
it
sure.
is devastating. I can't
So
imagine.
that means it's not isolated. That also means in order to maintain goodwill with residents, you know, it'd be nice to see if you guys have a plan, if there's anything being done to address. I see work being done on our section of town. I see, you know, that brick section's come up. Saw totally new drains just driving in tonight in there. Is there anything being done to expand the diameter of the stuff on Riddle to try to keep this from happening again?
So in 1980, 1981, there was a large drainage project that from Perry all the way up to, I think, Spruce, or close to that point. They upsized all of that under Murray and that sort of thing. And, you know, it's been functioning fine. So Riddle Avenue, where you're at, ties into that whole drainage system. The issue was the pipes at the end of Perry were clogged because of the township ditch. I just received permission this afternoon from the trustee of that estate, the old junkyard, to enter their property and clean it out.
Nice. Do you think
So-
that is connected to the backups then that came into the homes? Or it's
So-
just one thing you're checking off your list?
It's all connected. It's all connected. With the hill on Woodland, you would almost expect water would come up out of the catch basins, which they do, and go down the road, but that water is still stuck in a conduit in the pipe.
Exactly.
And
And I
it
think
backs
that's
up.
what we ran into. And we, being on a corner, have 2 storm drains right there. I don't know if that affects anything or not, but it just seems like volume would be higher. 35 years is a long time when you think about size of families, you know, the amount of, hopefully, influx here. We love this little town. We, you know, and we are thrilled to own a historic home here. It just, I still pinch myself that I'm walking around in it. But we can't live worrying that it's going to happen again. And the other thing that makes me nervous is with the climate changing and with these floods becoming more regular, it's not out of bounds to think that, you know, this is going to happen again in the nearer future than it did before. The woman across the street from me just lost her husband. Her name's Linda. And literally, her husband had been worried the last 10 years about flooding down there. He was paying attention. He knew something was probably going to happen. He passed away, and that was the day of his memorial that her entire basement flooded. She came home from the funeral, and then she got the second one 2 weeks later. So my request of council then would be, I'd like you to know that the public needs to see that some action is being taken on this. I'm not a litigious person. I have no interest in bringing suit, but I also can't have this happen again. So meeting in the middle of some sort of expansion of drains or expansion of ability to handle more flow, I'd really like to see
I think
discussed.
the first order of business, and Mr. Finney already mentioned this, is inspecting what we have. And they've
That's what
already.
we're working on.
It's slow because I think you only have one camera, is that the,
Correct.
yeah, so it may take a while.
Yep. How far
but-
through are you? Can I get an update on?
So we're hitting the problem areas. I've personally walked the outfalls and discovering issues with the outfalls. Everything starts at an outfall.
What-
We've notified
what is an
railroads.
outfall then?
Basically, that's where the pipe enters the ditch and
Got it.
discharges into the ditch.
Got it.
So we're identifying issues. And, you know, for instance, your area is not related to Diamond Street, that drainage issue at Diamond Street, or Spruce where the police department flooded.
Yep.
The
And I
motor
knew all
pools,
that. I
you
just
know.
logically.
So those are all different drainage areas that each one is considered separately.
Okay. All right.
But council has already discussed, if necessary, even hiring an outside consultant or whatever the, you know, engineers decide is a next course of action when they find problems. Now, I mean, to expand capacity,
I know.
I
I
mean,
know
that's
what I'm
going to take
asking. I know.
perhaps decades.
And I'm aware of the,
Yeah,
you know,
so.
what we're talking about. We're not talking about Washington, D.C. or New York City City Council. I'm fully aware of your capacity and your function and all of that kind of stuff, the size of our town.
Yeah, but we are actively addressing this because it impacted so me and so many other people,
Yeah,
so.
sorry if I put you
Yeah.
through it, recounting all that.
Yeah. So-
So my last practical request would be, can we have do you guys ever regularly communicate with residents, like send out some sort of monthly update when there's issues in a certain area? Or could there be a webpage dedicated to progress being made on investigating and then recommendations? Something along those lines, just so we know what's going on. I'll chill just fine, even if I know that the inspections can't be finished for another 18 months, as long as I know what the project timeline is and some idea when there's going to be decision made. And that, 18 months is time for grant applications too.
Yeah, I mean, you open up a bigger can of worms in terms of communication. I mean, it is a big issue we struggle with, not just flooding, but getting the word out on a lot of things. And we've tried to make some strides. We have an alert system now. You probably, if you've signed up for it, on those 2 days when we had the rain, you probably got flooded with alerts.
Yeah, I didn't know there were alerts. Yeah.
So the main, when we have a big push for communication, like getting people signed up for those things, our most common vehicle is the water bill, because everyone pretty much gets a water bill.
Okay.
And so the only other thing I can say, if you're interested in what we're doing during our meetings, is we always record our meetings, and I know it could be a onerous task to sit through a 2-hour
I do with legal contacts all
YouTube
the time, no big deal.
video, but we do record all the conversations we
Hey,
have.
there's AI to summarize that for me now.
Okay,
right.
well,
Well, I will say this, I understand that you're not operating on a several $million budget here monthly. I'm fully aware of that. I do direct divisional communications for the Division of IT at Kent State. If you would like any volunteer help with, some little more current ideas, I mean, I'm picturing just small yard signs with a QR code on it that residents can go to and get a little bit of an update. If there's anything like that I could help with, just
that sounds like a great idea. I
thinking
would never
through
have
that
thought
kind
of
of
that.
stuff.
So this is
Yeah.
what you do for a living?
Yeah, so I work for the Division of Information Technology, and I work on digital accessibility. By the way, your site isn't accessible, and it's legally whatever. We'll
Okay.
talk about that another time. Because now the
So
federal law has
if you
said
could
it.
leave some contact information, there might be some
Oh,
opportunities.
Tyler just got all excited.
Hi, I'm Tyler from the Information Systems Committee. I also work in IT for my day job.
Nice.
We can have a lot of conversation at some point, and we'll be probably having a meeting for some discussion items for ours later. Not today, but
On the
if you could
15th.
leave your contact information with me, I would be happy to
I
reach
have
out.
to say I did not bring business cards with me tonight.
What a shame. Well, I have
but-
paper if you need some too.
Yeah, let me scribble that down. That would be great. Thanks for listening.
Okay.
Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
And I
Thank you.
know that I'm representative of many.
Yes, we know. Thank you
Yeah,
very
we
much.
appreciate it.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Stamino. Just before, did you want to give a separate issue, or you wanted to talk?
I wanted to add 2 quick thoughts. I want to say one thing, though. I
Okay.
want to compliment you, ma'am, on your presentation. Outstanding. And you were really to the point, and you really made, to me, a lot of sense and very meaningful in how you did it, and your composure, professionalism. I compliment you.
Thank you.
And your willingness to follow up and help us out.
Yeah.
I appreciate,
That's how you make change.
Yep. Well, and that's what I do is communications. So I would
Bravo.
love to be involved
Bravo.
with that.
Mr. Selenius?
2 quick thoughts. You're calling it a 100-year problem, but it happened 2 weeks apart. So it's no longer a 100-year problem. I've been told that the manhole covers sanitary sewer system have holes in them, which would allow stormwater to add to the sanitary sewer system. So if that is true, those manhole covers should be replaced with solid covers, probably in Ward 4 or east of Freedom Street.
Thank you. I don't know, is that a reason?
When we resurface a road, we replace the castings. Thank you so much. And I don't disagree with what Larry is saying. However, the small holes on the castings are not the primary issue.
Right.
We do, one of the reasons we're Cameron, so we have 2 separate issues that are connected. we have storm issues, and we have sanitary issues. If our sanitary backs up because we have I&I issues, then that's what's going back into people's basements. The other issue is if their storm drains are connected to their sanitary and it backs up, then it backs up into their storms. Now, that's an illegal connection. So if we started testing homeowners, and we used to do smoke testing and dye testing and things, then the homeowner would be responsible to disconnect and make changes. And we could have whole wards that have those issues. So, you know, there's a whole other can of worms that could be opened up, because now if we identify these, then the city's responsible, the homeowner's responsible. Where does the responsibility lie? So, my advice my canned advice to a resident is, where are your pipes leaving your house? And are they in good working order? Are they free and clear? And I generally hear, I don't know, how do I do that? So then I would tell them, hire a plumber, trace the lines, camera the lines, snake the lines, do whatever you can to know that your system is operating and where the pipes leave. And although it's not a foolproof system, those flapper valves can be very efficient. Homeowners need to know when that gets shut by the city system, so they don't flush their toilet, or they don't take a shower or run their dishwasher, because that water will go down and get stuck and come back in their floor drain. So they just have to be mindful of those types of activities.
I was just going to mention, I forgot to mention this before, part of what makes me nervous is walking up and down the street in our galoshes during these guys, the amount of people that said, we put in backflow, you know, we covered with the flappers, we put in a sump pump, and the volume, you know, so, and again, responsibility of where it ends and begins, totally with you. But I'm doing my part. I want to see that you guys are thinking it through and coming up with a plan as well.
I've worked for the city for 24 years. I've inspected one backflow flapper valve, and that was a couple weeks ago on Sanford. So when folks say that they've done these things, maybe they have, I just haven't inspected them. I don't want to say that, but I've seen some, there's certain contractors that you trust, and there's other contractors you don't know. And I've seen some really disappointing work. And homeowners they hired these folks and think they're really getting a good job. And, well, it's disappointing, but I can't babysit everybody, and there's buyer beware too.
So,
Yeah, we have a list. My advice to a resident is, find a local excavator plumber. You know where they reside, you know where their office is. If you get upset with them, you could literally find them, stand on their porch and choke them if you have to. But if you're hiring,
We're not advising.
if you're hiring two men and I'll say it, I don't mind. If you're hiring two men in a truck out of Cleveland or Bowling Green or Columbus, you may never see them again. So I won't recommend one over another, but I will always say choose a local contractor.
so Bob, just to make this clear, if anyone's listening as we're having this conversation, if I want to install backflow valves in my home, I need a permit to do that, correct?
You need a permit, but there's no fee for that permit.
Thank you.
And that will allow us to come and inspect it, and we inspect, and we are also creating a drawing of it with dimensions, so that will be a permanent record for that house.
And then that's ensuring that the plumber is doing it properly.
So we will then verify that the plumber or excavator, whoever is doing it, is, if they're an excavator, they would post a bond, a $10,000 bond, which we need to talk about raising at some point. But they're also registered contractor also. So again, we have their information. They post insurance certificate and a bond to do that type of work.
That's good to know.
So, yeah, Next week, we're going to ask council to approve a new head for the jet, which is $6,000, so it can break free. Some of the storm lines we're going in have bricks and things, concrete somehow got in there. We can't get our small tractor camera past, so we'll have to break that free, and then we could get through. But the other is we're gonna ask council to approve a new tractor, a bigger tractor. So our camera is on a tractor, like a cylinder with wheels, and then the little camera head can do all its thing. The camera head can be fit on this new tractor. It's just bigger and can go in bigger diameter pipe. Our tractor is designed for smaller pipe, and if it goes up the walls of a bigger pipe, it just falls over. So, but yeah, we were looking into do that stuff, yeah. All right, and our large Vector we just got it back, well, it was back today, so maybe last week. It was at the shop for repair. So it's functional.
Mrs. Semino has another comment.
On commercials, there's an annual reinspection on backflow preventers.
Yes, this is different though.
Okay,
So that's for
residential
water.
would not require that? Residential would not
So
require that?
residential does not have backflows on the water meter. This is specific, so what you're asking is specifically water meter, the water system, not sanitary. Leaving the house. Mhm.
Okay.
And,
was
and
insightful.
just to answer what Larry said, so when there's and the engineering industry has gone away from calling it a 100-year flood or 100-year storm, that sort of thing. It's the probability that this rain event could happen in 100 years. What is the probability? More than calling it a 100-year. So if the probability of having that rain event in 100 years happened in 3 weeks, and actually, if you looked at the actual rainfall data over a 24-hour period for the frequency of 100-year, we were more like a 500-year. That's a 24-hour frequency, a 24-hour rain period where we had it in 45 minutes or something like that. So.
Administration.
Question.
Because that's another side that could be gone down. I mean, I worked with you guys to get our deductible back in January for the sewer stuff. Obviously, we're not eligible for moral claim stuff with the designation of act of God. That could be a goodwill way to move towards residents if you said, hey, we want to give you access to 3K or something like that if you should need to submit. I think that would go a long way as well. It might hold off. Not that you got in this money to throw at residents, but hey, you don't have to advertise it, just let us know.
Okay, well, we're going to move on with the agenda. Unless there's anybody else, I don't see any other people here getting up for a delegation. All right, next item on the agenda is report of officials, which should have been in your packet. Does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns about the report from officials? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve those reports?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is report from committees. Committee meetings will start next Monday, September 16th at 6 o'clock. First up are utilities. Mr. Moskin.
Right now, there's nothing for next week's committee meeting.
Information systems, Mr. Maravich.
A couple discussion items for next week.
Okay. Planning, Ms. West.
We will be having a meeting next week.
Committee of the whole meeting will be on Monday, September 23rd at 6 o'clock. I should note that next week's committee meetings will begin with a public hearing for discussion about the agenda changes for our regular meeting. And then on the committee of whole meeting, before that meeting, we will have our public hearing about parking on Park Avenue. Okay, next committee is Public Health and Safety. Ms. Michael's not here, but we do have some items on the agenda. I'm not sure if there's going to be a meeting next week. Streets and Sidewalks, Mr. Harper.
Yeah, we have a couple items for consideration this evening, and I'm pretty sure we'll be having a meeting.
Okay. Personnel, Dr. Calfee.
Yes, we will have a meeting on the 16th, the Personnel Committee meeting.
Community and Economic Development was not here. Cemetery, is there an update from the cemetery from Mr. Harper or Mr. Moskin?
Well, they had several trees cleaned up. Some of them had to be done by a contractor because of the size of the trees. The one tree in particular was done, well, it was in real bad shape, but then also to prevent possible liability problems if it came down because of its condition as well. So that was worth taking that one down.
Anything else?
Pretty status quo.
Is there an update on Parks and Recreation, Ms. West?
Yes, so the Emerald Lake Phase 2 items that we have on the agenda, that's going to be moved on to next month. There's some issues with the grant as far as discrepancies with how it's been written.
Oh, okay, so we did get a communication from Ms. Watkins. Now, is it the desire to keep them on the agenda or to table them? And we could talk about that when the items come up.
I was going to keep them on, keep it on the agenda and then discuss it next month. Just move
Okay.
it on and not, if that's okay. So that way, if they get everything in order, we've already had the discussion.
Okay.
If that's okay with everybody. They're hoping to have the final design for Osborne Park by the end of November. Summer camp went well. They've concluded all that. Soccer is beginning, and they already have their registration for fall sports to maximum capacity. So they're doing really well with Parks and Rec. That's all I got.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, then we will move on to first reading of ordinances. The first ordinance is ordinance number 2024-97.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of new duty guns and accessories for the Ravenna Police Department and trading in the old duty guns and declaring an emergency.
This is from Public Health and Safety. Obviously, Ms. Michael's not here, but Chief, would you like to give a few comments about this item before we start voting?
Switch is because we are looking, the 9mm, we're switching to a different caliber. The money is, the ammo is cheaper in our guns. We've had the guns for 12 years, so to switch to something that's a little more user-friendly for the officers, that fits more hands better. So those are the two main reasons why we switched to age and the expense. Wide range of officers fit their hand better.
Should note that this is being paid for through the ARPA funds, and thank you for coming underneath the quote.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I had a couple questions. I see that we're trading in our existing, all of our duty guns. Used guns have quite a good value on the resale market. Were we able to get a good price on the trade-in for these guns?
Yeah, so $300 was the trade-in value. Where the person we're selling, Manaway Hardware is purchasing them.
That was my other question. I saw that it was Lawn and Garden that we were ending up getting it from.
Yeah, they actually have, one side is the lawn and garden and the other side
Okay.
is the fire.
Okay.
section.
Okay.
So the price that they're giving us is fair market value.
It is.
They're not giving us we're not losing a ton of money, but we paid, 12 years ago, we paid $750 a piece for them. So we're getting $300
Okay.
for them.
Okay. And then on our training, is this a gun that when we train with it, we can train without ammo on this gun?
Yeah, so one of the other purchases that we got was the Milo simulator, the scenario simulator. So 2 of the guns we purchased are going to be dedicated to the simulator.
Okay.
And officers can go down, once we get it set up and we've had a little more training, I'm going to invite everybody down to take a look and go through the couple scenarios and some of the stuff that it has, but it does have, in the beginning, portions of the simulator where the officers can go and they can practice marksmanship. And one of the things that they're adding is going to be the Ohio qualification course. So officers can, in inclement weather, different times, go through and practice the qualification course in different scenarios.
Yeah, because of the expense of ammo, I was hoping that we would have that capability with the new guns. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Are there any other questions or concerns about this item?
I'm going to say I completely support this. I understand the idea, so I'm completely for it.
This is on first reading. Do we have a motion to waive the 3 readings?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
It also has an emergency clause. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And a motion to approve the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
That ordinance stands approved. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-98.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Ravenna, Part 4, Traffic Code, Title II, Administration, Enforcement, and Penalties, Chapter 406, Traffic Control, Section 406.05, Traffic Control Signals by removing the traffic signals at the intersection of Main Street and King Street and declaring an emergency.
This is from Streets and Sidewalks. Mr. Harper?
Yeah, it's to remove the ordinance from code.
Anybody have any questions about this? Do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
The ordinance includes an emergency clause. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And do we have a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
That ordinance stands approved. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-99.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to send out requests for proposals, RFP, for the 2024 street tree planting program and to enter into a contract for an amount not to exceed $20,000 and declaring an emergency.
Also from Streets and Sidewalks, Mr. Harper?
Yep, exactly what it says, request for proposals for the fall tree planting.
Questions, comments about this? Do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
And a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
That ordinance stands approved. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-100.
An ordinance accepting a donation in the sum of $50,000 from Main Street Ravenna for city tree plantings and declaring an emergency.
Also from Streets and Sidewalks, Mr. Harper?
Yeah, this is a anonymous donation for additional tree plantings this fall.
Question,
Yes.
did the donor specify types of trees, locations of trees, any of those types of things, or was it completely?
There were some specifications. They liked the downtown area, they liked larger trees, and I believe some are also set to go out in Maplewood Cemetery as well.
Okay.
Were there additional?
Yeah, just central downtown districts, as well as Maple Grove, as well as outside in the wards also, so.
Yeah, so they did the best they
Everywhere.
could to meet their specifications, and then we'll spread out from there.
Okay, but they did have some wishes.
They did,
Okay.
yeah.
And I believe that the donation may be more than 50,000?
Yes, it looks like the first donation that we received from Main Street was over $25,000. I think it was right around $25,650. The second one that's going to come in should be right at 25, but I want to make sure it's not 25,650. So can we adjust that to 52?
What number would you like to?
I think 52 even would be appropriate.
Would someone like to offer an amendment to change the 50,000 in the various places in this ordinance to 52,000?
I will make an motion to change that to
Not to exceed, not to exceed.
not
Not
to
to exceed
exceed
50,000?
52.
And the sum, appropriating the sum not to exceed 52,000.
Yes, exactly.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the ordinance is amended. Any other discussion, any other questions? Is there a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
The ordinance contains an emergency clause. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And a motion to approve the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
That ordinance stands approved. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-101.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids according to law for chemicals required for the water and wastewater treatment for the calendar year 2025 pursuant to specifications now on file in the mayor's office and declaring an emergency.
This is from the Utilities Committee. Mr. Moskin?
Yes, this is something that's required by the EPA for both departments. And without these chemicals being approved, they cannot operate properly. If anyone wants a list of these and why they're used, can easily obtain these if anyone requests.
Are there any questions or comments about this ordinance? Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
There's an emergency clause attached to this ordinance. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And a motion to approve the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
That ordinance stands approved. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-102.
An ordinance authorizing an emergency purchase of a new lift station without competitive bidding and appropriating funds not to exceed $130,000 from Fund 677 and declaring an emergency.
It's also from Utilities Committee. Mr. Moscom.
Yes, this is very critical. This needs to be done instantaneously. The reason it's not done with competitive bidding is because this is something, a specialty item, and everything that goes into this is spec'd out according to each, I should say, municipality and what is needed in that instance. And there isn't time to wait for competitive bidding. This is very urgent.
Is the location of this what I forgot where it was going in?
It is Maplewood School. I'm hesitating because I know the name has changed over the years.
It's right off of Route 88, right in front of a Maplewood School. Yes, right in the lawn there, right by the street.
And it's replacing an existing one?
Yes, it's a complete drop in the same thing that was there.
Okay.
Was there any thought about putting any barriers around this one? I know we asked that the last one. Yes, that's happening now? Okay. Yeah, good. Don't want to replace it again.
Another one of those 1 in a million year.
Right.
Or 100-year events. Any other questions or concerns about this ordinance? Is there a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And is there a motion to approve the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
That ordinance stands approved. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-103.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a Bobcat articulated loader and attachments not to exceed $50,000 for the Parks and Recreation Department and declaring an emergency.
This is from Planning. Ms. West?
And this is a Bobcat that's going to support with cleaning up at our parks, cleaning up the hike and bike trail, as well as hopefully used in the future at the Emerald Lake project.
Are there questions concerning this ordinance? Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved?
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
The ordinance contains an emergency clause. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved?
Second?
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And a motion to approve the ordinance.
So moved?
Second?
Second? Third?
2 motions and 2 seconds.
First, second. Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
That ordinance stands approved. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-104.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Ravenna, Part 12, Planning and Zoning Code, Title 6, Zoning, Chapter 1266, Districts Generally and Zoning Map, Section 1266.03, Zoning Map by rezoning Portage County Parcel Number 31-316-10-00-011-000 from R4 Residential District to I1 Industrial District as described in Exhibit A.
This is from the Planning Committee, Ms. West.
So this is the residential lot located next to business on Chestnut. They are asking to rezone the house that's there so that they can use that as parking.
And Mr. Finney, this is actually a request from the Planning Commission to have this rezoned, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And because it's a rezoning, we do have to have a public hearing. I don't believe we've scheduled it yet. Or have we?
No,
No.
they have not decided.
Are we ready to schedule it?
Yes.
Okay, and one of the components of that public hearing is to alert the neighbors, right?
That is correct.
So do we have a list of the neighbors ready to go out?
Has
Or
Tiffany
no-
provided that to you? Okay. I mean, she can provide that to you.
Okay, so in the next few days, we will schedule the public hearing, get those notices out, and hopefully that'll be done. I think we have to wait 30 days between the announcement, whenever we announce it, to actually hold the hearing. And all the documents related to this need to be in the clerk's office so that anyone can inspect them and comment on them in a 30-day period. And then there's a component to this too, as I understand, and I don't know if the Planning Commission has gone through this process to waive the requirement for the setback. We had discussed this during the committee.
Correct. We're going to discuss that at the next Planning Commission meeting.
Okay.
So Planning Commission would have to all agree, vote
Right.
on it, and then move that to City Council for adoption. But we have time, since,
Right.
again, you have to have the public hearing.
Right.
And then at the public hearing, would that be just the residents on Chestnut or some on Lincoln?
Anybody can come in and comment
Well,
on
I
the
know-
public
I
hearing.
understand that, but I mean the ones that'll be notified.
Oh, I don't remember exact, it's the adjacent and,
Across from an adjacent two will be
Yeah.
notified, but it'll also be advertised in the newspaper.
and the sign will be posted
And we
on the
will, yeah,
property.
we'll post a sign in the front yard, 24 by 36, I think it is, as the code states. Something like that.
Okay, so there's no action on this tonight. We have to wait for the public hearing and probably 3 full readings for this one.
Right, moving it forward pushes it to the next level, which is the public hearing.
Right.
I'm down on the bike and hike trail there nearby quite frequently. And just recently, I counted over 30 cars in the existing parking lot.
What time of day was that?
It was late in the afternoon on a, I can't remember if it was a Saturday or not, but they're in dire need of additional parking there. Although I do commend them on how well they have handled the parking situation so far. It has not been a problem. They've got a good handle on it there, and
Yeah.
they're doing well with it.
And we appreciate their willingness to accommodate further parking by purchasing this home and making all these changes. And I believe part of the parking lot will have some landscaping too, as sort of suggested
Correct.
by the Planning
Yep.
Commission.
Correct.
Okay, so we will move on since we can't take action on that tonight. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-105.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for a grant through the Clean Ohio Green Space Conservation Fund program and to accept the grant if awarded and declaring an emergency.
It's from the Planning Commission, Ms. West.
Yes, so this is, I talked about this during the Parks and Rec Committee. This one and the next two ordinances, I'm asking if we could just keep on and move on to next month so we can get some additional information.
All right, so then we will keep this one on first, or
Second.
Move it to second.
we'll keep it on the agenda for a second reading. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-106.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign a non-binding agreement to purchase additional properties adjacent to Emerald Lake through the Clean Ohio Grant and declaring an emergency.
And this would be the same thing, just asking to move this on to second reading.
And then we will move on to ordinance number 2024-107.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign a contract with Neil Hess as the dual agent in the sale of properties through a land acquisition grant and declaring an emergency.
And again, asking to move this on to a second reading.
Okay, well, we will move on now to ordinance number 2024-108.
An ordinance authorizing the IT director to sell printers, computers, equipment, and associated machinery having a value of less than $1,000 pursuant to the predetermined valuation of the individual items available that are available after being advertised for not less than 2 nor more than 4 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general jurisdiction within the municipal corporation and declaring an emergency.
This is from Information Services. Systems, I'm sorry. Mr. Maravich.
That's all right. So this is just codifying our ability to sell things that are no longer useful city assets in a more specific way than is defined by the Ohio Revised Code. So this is giving us a nice policy.
So I have some concerns. My understanding, and maybe I missed this, but the ordinance states that having a value of less than 1,000, according to Ohio Revised Code, something less than 1,000 doesn't require any kind of special process. Shouldn't this be for more than 1,000? Because when it's more than 1,000, you have to advertise and for 2 more weeks. All those other conditions in this ordinance apply when it's above 1,000, not below 1,000.
Yeah, we're filling in a gap that the state of Ohio doesn't currently have for us. So this increases the policy that's written as well. We'll be covering making sure we are diligent and making sure we, say which hard drives, for example, what the process is for removing those. But this is just making sure we have a better codified ordinance. So rather than just a department head being able to go, this is an asset we're not using, and just putting it through, this is a.
It's not a mistake when it says less than 1,000?
Not a mistake, correct.
Okay, because I thought that when we discussed it, that was kind of the issue.
And why would we want to put a requirement on the IT director that is not a requirement by the state? Can he not dispose of these things in a way that he thinks right?
It provides better guidance. It's kind of open-ended otherwise, so this kind of gives a clear path for how we do that.
And it helps keep better documentation on how we're disposing of things, even the smallest of things, and tracking how we're getting rid of things.
It's an accountability piece as well.
I guess the only thing that, and the reason I thought it was a mistake is because it specifically mentions components of the Ohio Revised Code that are requirements for items that are above 1,000. For example, advertising in a paper for not less than 2. I mean, that's exactly the language from the Ohio Revised Code. Is that kind of going a little bit overboard? Do we really want that? I mean, we're basically saying locally, we're dispensing from that $1,000 limit, and we're just saying anything has to go through this process, regardless of the cost.
We don't have another way to get rid of stuff. If it has any value, if it's worth $5, it's not supposed to go to a dumpster. And
well, that's disposing of it.
But if it's worth $5, the amount of time it takes to even send to auction is almost, the administrative staff is worth a lot more than just $5. So if we throw it in a dumpster, we have to be able to say it had no value. At least with this, he's saying this is our means of getting rid of something that has very little value. and he's gonna group a whole bunch of stuff together and
My point is,
throw it out.
the Ohio Revised Code already allows him to do that.
In our
And then
City of
whatever-
Ravenna policy hasn't. Everything has had to go to auction or had to be offered for sale, or
But
we
that's
throw it
not-
in a dumpster.
But that's not true. I mean, that's not what the state doesn't mandate it go to auction unless it's over a
I
$1,000.
understand that. I'm saying City of Ravenna's policy has always been, the unwritten policy is it has to go to auction. I mean, I have a pickup truck that's worth maybe $300, it's gotta go to auction.
Well, there's a policy already
Yeah.
in existence.
That's what we've been practicing in all the years that I've been with the city. So this cleans it up a little bit.
I'm agreeing with what Mr. Finney said, because I can recall that even going back farther of that
Is this
policy.
something we want to possibly move on to second reading and get some more
I-
feedback?
You know, in all honesty, Jonathan was concerned because he felt as though the state statute did not address what he wanted to accomplish.
Yeah.
He thought as though it provided some gray areas that he wasn't feeling comfortable with trying to move on things. And he talked to me about things like $30, $50. I mean, it didn't seem to me like he really got over $100
Yeah.
on doing this. And he thought that this would be a more efficient way of trying to dispose of these minimal items. And, I mean, he talked about, you know, putting stuff in this room. He didn't say that. But, you know, just having a tag on it and saying, people come on in and, you know, take it and, you know, buy it or something. To me, it was a minimal valuation of things that we accumulate because of, you know, new computers come in, the old ones go out, the valuation on them is not significant. I mean, my recollection of talking with him, I mean, we're talking about things under $100 for the majority of times.
In quantities thereof, like monitors and computers
Right,
that stack
right.
up,
And
that
it was
really
just-
aren't doing any value for the city, but they might be valuable to someone else, and we could use the money from that to help advance other goals.
And I just, my question is, why do we have to enact an ordinance to do that? And number two, if we're gonna do that, which was okay, why are we putting in these stipulations about advertising to, you know, because people are gonna forget, and now all of a sudden they're gonna be in odds with an ordinance. I mean, why put those figures in there when they apply to something above 1,000?
Well, but because it's something less than, and still something you want to sell, and you want to put people on notice. So, I mean, I don't see a real problem with that.
I mean, it's nice to
Well,
have
but
that accountability, especially since we've just done some like fraud, waste, and abuse training. It's nice to be able to say, we disposed of these assets in
Why
our
not just
manner as
advertise it?
prescribed.
Why not less than 2 and not more than 4 consecutive? I mean, that just, to me, that puts on an administrative cloak that if they forget to do that, then they're in odds with the ordinance. And what's the magic of 2 and 4 weeks?
Well, I don't know that you forget if it's in the ordinance, how you're supposed to forget that. I mean, if it's there
Well,
in
over
writing.
time, I mean, you have a practice now. This will become a practice. I mean, is this ordinance going to be hanging in everybody's office to remember how to do this? And is it onerous in itself just to advertise for this specific period of time? Why not just say it has to be advertised in the paper, period?
That's another way you can do it. but
Yeah, I
he
mean, that would be
proposed it this
easier.
way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
1
It
week
can-
or
it
2
can
weeks.
simply be 1 week. It can be 5 days. The point is, it's not a policy, it's an ordinance. Policies change. His policies might be different than the next service director. I've watched a service director shove policies in a garbage can, start his own way.
Well, yeah.
So.
Then
from
that's
an-
possible. That's
From an
the beauty of them,
administration,
though.
we don't know what so ordinance, we know what the ordinance is.
And to
And we have to follow
consistency
it.
across departments for that, too.
And I would think legislative body would appreciate knowing the exact policy that we're supposed to follow.
I spoke to Jonathan several weeks ago. I understand his idea. And I can understand his whole thought process with this.
So what is the pleasure of council at this point in time? I mean, if there's enough of you that want to take action tonight, you can. I've read through it and I have those are my criticisms. I'm not saying that they're deal breakers or any stretch of the imagination.
My thought, I'll rephrase that. My belief is that it's an excellent idea, and I believe doesn't have to be an emergency, but I'm backing this all the way.
I feel like we brought Jonathan in as an IT director to answer a lot of questions that we couldn't answer for ourselves about IT. And this is one thing that he's suggesting that we didn't have in place as he's going through policies and procedures and ordinances to see how, we could clean things up for IT in the city. So I agree with Paul. It doesn't necessarily have to be an emergency, but I'm okay with moving it.
Tonight? Okay, in that case, I would like to make one suggestion for a change, an amendment to this. In the first whereas, it states that over the course of years, the city of Ravenna acquires printers, computers, equipment, and associated machinery that relates to the intellectual properties of the city offices. I think that should be personal properties. Intellectual properties are like copyright and patent. These are tangible items. And I think that, and as there's in fact, section 1 below says personal property shall be defined pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5701.03. So I think it's just a misprint. I think it should be personal properties, not intellectual properties.
Is that a motion?
Well, I can't make a motion, but if somebody would willing to make that amendment to the ordinance.
Since this is my first impression of what those words mean or not mean, I don't know if I understand what's being proposed.
Well, intellectual property is a concept where you're owning an idea. You're owning like a book or something along those lines. So when people plagiarize or violate copyright, they're violating somebody's intellectual property. What we're talking about in this policy, in this ordinance, are tangible physical items, not intellectual property, but actually personal property.
Is it personal property if the city owns it?
Yeah.
I think in all honesty, personal property, as far as law is concerned, is something that's tangible, that you have. I don't care whether it's a car, a gun, whatever it is, that's personal property.
So it's an item the city owns.
Okay.
Yeah, in referring to the Ohio Revised Code, that section basically defines property, not intellectual property, but tangible property, into either real property, which is buildings and land, and everything else, which is personal property. So I know the word personal seems a little bit odd.
That was my
But that's the
question, really. Okay.
context of this policy and the
I
Ohio
don't have
Revised
any
Code.
problem with making that personal.
Yeah.
Would someone like to make that
I'll
motion?
make a motion to addend ordinance 224-108 to read in the first whereas, where it says, associated machinery that relates to the personal properties of the city offices.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
All right.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so that amendment will be included in this ordinance now. Any other further discussion?
It was brought up a minute ago about the advertising, and I don't know if we fully resolved the discussion of that. I'm okay as it's written, but would advertising just one time meet the need? And would it be better to have less of a requirement? If you really want this, it's fine. I'm just, that was just a thought as it came up, is if we're going to advertise, is one sufficient? But if you're thinking your advertising is going to bring in more customers, maybe two is what you want.
Well, I think a little bit of time gives people time to
Okay,
prepare.
yeah, I have
from
no,
that
I
perspective.
have no concern then. Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Is there a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
I'll
Second.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
This item has an emergency clause. Do we have a motion to enact the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
No.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
So we only have 4 votes for an emergency clause. That means that this ordinance will take 30 days before it gets put in place. Okay?
Very good.
Do we have a motion, assuming you approve the motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Okay, that ordinance is approved. The next is a resolution number 2024-109.
A resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Portage County Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
And this is from our finance people, I believe. Ms. Lawrence, would you like to explain this?
This is just an annual housekeeping item that we need to certify to the auditor of Portage County for our amounts and rates.
Okay, and as I understand it, every council person needs to sign off on this, or at least the ones who voted tonight?
It needs to pass.
No, I mean, but there needs to be an affixed signature for every?
Yes.
Like, and we have that?
I have to redo this since we're missing 2 people.
Okay. All right, then. Is there a motion to waive the 3 separate readings for this resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
I'll note that there is not an emergency clause attached to this. Is that by mistake?
That means it can wait till next month.
Can it wait till next month, Ms. Lawrence?
It's a resolution.
I
Oh,
can
it's a
dou-
resolution, so a resolution doesn't require? Oh, well, a little education tonight. Okay, so we don't need, so apparently we don't need an emergency clause.
Okay. I will trust Chelsea.
Yeah, so will
I
the
think that's
rest
the
of
way
us.
we do it all the time.
Okay, all right. We don't get resolutions very often. I
So
think this is
we-
my first one sitting in this chair
So we
anyway.
can get those signatures at any time. Okay.
Oh, will we need all 7 signatures, or can we do it with 5?
Brian, are you aware? I don't have that answer without asking. This isn't a. I'll double check.
Well,
I will double
Somebody's
check.
if
missed,
they're not here, they're not here.
Yeah.
and somebody's missed, I only see 6.
Yeah, because I knew somebody was.
Okay. Oh,
Chelsea, I'll double check.
I mean,
do we need it signed tonight?
No, it doesn't need to be signed tonight.
we could do that.
But we
though.
can get signatures
Oh,
tonight and
if you
whoever
can
else
get
we may
signatures
need.
tonight, I just mean the
So you-
people that aren't here, though.
But they're not voting.
Right, they can't sign if they're not here to vote.
Correct.
Okay, so you'll go ahead and redo it
Yep.
and get everybody to sign. Remember to sign it before you leave tonight, assuming it passes. So is there a motion to pass this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
That resolution stands approved. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-110.
An ordinance authorizing the finance director upon issuance of a certificate of availability of funds to pay certain purchase orders made that exceed $3,000 and declaring an emergency.
Also from our finance director, Ms. Lawrence.
Yes, we discussed this quite a bit last time. This is a new compliance issue that we have to get certified. It will be a monthly, possibly, ordinance that we have to do, and just basically certifying that the purchase orders were in place when the purchase was made.
Are there questions about this ordinance? In the list of, what do they call these? This is a term I'm
Then
not.
and now certificate of
Then and
availability.
now
Then and now
certificates.
certificates. Okay. That's in your packet.
So is this something that needs to be taken care of right now?
It would be nice if it was passed right now.
It's gonna be
Okay.
there every month.
And then it
Well-
will be something that I'll be bringing to council each month.
Okay, that gives me a better understanding.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes. It won't be as extensive as, of a list each month that you will see. But this month is for from the beginning of the year till now, Paul.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Calfee?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to approve the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Calfee?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
And a motion to approve the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Calfee?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
That ordinance stands approved. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-111.
An ordinance accepting a proposal provided by Love Insurance Agency, a copy of which is attached hereto and marked Exhibit A, for the renewal of insurance coverage for the period of September 14th, 2024 through September 14th, 2025, and declaring an emergency.
Also from Finance, Ms. Lawrence.
Yes, we've spent a lot of time with Love Insurance and shopping out our policy this year. It took a long time, as you guys are aware, because I just got the quotes last Friday. Talked with Frank Semino quite a bit and James Love at Love Insurance. The premium's coming in at $147,115, and your email, he gave quite a bit of information about what was changed, what was included. We did shop it, and the competitive bid, which wasn't competitive, ended up being at $200,000, and they wouldn't even finish because some of the things that they were questioning in the deductibles and liabilities, they weren't even willing to keep going to the point where they would provide the detail of the quote. So I think this is the best bid that we have, and we need to pass this by the 14th in order to have the insurance renewal for the year.
And this constitutes a 7% increase in our
The
premium?
7% increase in the premium, and then we did up some valuations and added some vehicles this year that were purchased. So part of the increase was due to that.
Additions.
If there's any specific questions, let me
Anybody
know.
have any questions?
Under the, I guess my question may relate to our current policy and how it fits in with this one. Under the property section of it, where it's listing the different things that we have coverage for, there's listed water backup, sewer and drain, $100,000 for direct physical loss or damage. On an insurance policy like this, does that just refer to city-owned property and city-owned buildings, or what is that?
Yeah, I can't answer that exactly to, 100%. I can ask the insurance agent. I would assume that is just our property.
Just your property, yeah. The other question is, it
Although
lists,
I would say this to you.
I'm sorry.
I would also say this to you. To the extent that someone would be able to establish that there was negligence, impropriety on the city's part, there could be liability based on that. So I would assume that they're talking about that also.
On the current policy that we're getting ready to approve, under property, it lists golf course greens, $100,000. Since we don't have those, can we get a deduct for that off of?
I can ask, but yeah.
Or maybe it's cited
If we're
the golf
paying
course.
for it. That's all the questions I have.
Are there other questions or comments? Is there a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Calfee?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And the ordinance contains an emergency clause. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Calfee?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
And an ordinance to approve, and a motion to approve the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Calfee?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
That ordinance stands approved. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2024-112.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an audit agreement with Spyglass Group LLC to perform an audit of the city's telecommunications accounts and declaring an emergency.
This one is also from our finance director, Ms. Lawrence.
And this is just authorization for the Spyglass company to look at our last 2 months of bills for our telecommunication services and offer up suggestions for savings.
And we share the savings with
And-
them, assuming
They
we
have
find some.
50% of the recovery savings, which are things in the past that we probably would never discover.
Right.
They would share with us, and then ongoing costs, we would share some of that part with them as well. Jonathan Bender will be key in making the decisions on this stuff.
Are there questions or concerns about this ordinance? Hearing none, is there a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
The ordinance contains an emergency clause. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And a motion to approve the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Maravich?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelfi?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
That ordinance stands approved. That concludes ordinances on first reading. Now we will proceed to ordinances on second reading. First one is ordinance number 2024-91.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Ravenna, Title 8, Parking, Chapter 452, Parking Generally, Section 452.20, Prohibited and Restricted Parking Areas, Subsection A, by prohibiting parking on both sides of Park Avenue at all times.
And again, first, that's from Streets and Sidewalk, Mr. Harper.
Yeah, public hearing is scheduled for September 23rd. Have notices been sent? I know you guys had talked about that. Good there.
Yeah. So that will be before our committee of the whole meeting in a couple of weeks. So seeing as we will wait till after the public hearing, we'll leave this on second reading and move on to the next ordinance. Ordinance number 2024-95.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Ravenna, Ohio, Part 2, Administration Code, Title 4, Legislation, Chapter 220, Council by amending Section 220.09, Order of Business, and declaring an emergency.
It's from Planning Committee, Ms. West.
And this is an ordinance changing the order of business as listed in the ordinance, and it's adding possible consent agenda as well as invited city officials and some other changes.
The hearing for this, public hearing for this ordinance will be a week from tonight, right before our committee meetings. So again, we will leave this on second reading and move on to our last ordinance, ordinance number 2024-96.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Ravenna, Ohio, Part 2, Administration Code, Title 2, General Provisions, Chapter 220, Council, Section 220.10, Agenda, and declaring an emergency.
And this one is from the Planning Committee, Mrs. West.
And this is going to be a change in adding consent agenda to our agenda. So we'll be able to group some things that are happening every month, such as the then and nows and reading of minutes and such. So we'll be able to vote on those and move through processes more quickly.
And the public hearing that I mentioned a week from tonight will include this ordinance. We are including both ordinances in the
Correct.
public hearing because they are interconnected. So we will leave this one also. That concludes our reading of ordinances. We don't have any readings on third ordinance. Do we have any old business? Hearing none, do we have any new business? No new business. Everyone wants to go home.
I have new business.
Oh, you have new business? Mr. Semino?
I want to compliment the chief of police for the hydrangeas in front of the police station. Really beautiful. Thank you.
And I would just want to state the water tank is
Ah,
a third of the way taken down. So if you're not out there tomorrow, you might miss it.
But if you do miss it, Tyler and I were there a little bit earlier, and you got some drone footage.
Oh, okay.
So we were able to
Great.
kind of watch them, because when do you get to watch them take a water tower down?
Maybe once a lifetime.
It was pretty cool to be able to see.
And how many people have seen the inside of one?
It was
From
pretty
the top.
neat, yeah. And they're working inside the water tower, so we were able to watch them work inside the water tower.
There's some footage of that as well.
Yeah.
cool.
And they're working, at King and Main, they're working on the RFBs. They did the foundations today. By the end of the week, they'll set the new ones up, and then they'll take the intersection down. So just a process to go through. So the crosswalk will be installed before they take signals down.
That's great.
And Freedom Street has curbs already. Yeah, they're moving forward quickly. All right, that's all.
Okay, then we'll move on to President of Council remarks. I just have one remark, and that is a congratulations to the Chamber and all those involved in the Ravenna Rocks event. I was there in various capacities, and perhaps Ms. West will explain what the city did as part of that, and with the help of many city workers and some other members of council and so forth. I just enjoyed the day. I think there was great music there, and lots of good food and lots of good people, and fireworks, which was real fun. I brought my grandkids down for some fireworks, and it's been a long time since we saw fireworks from within the downtown area. So it was a lot of fun. So I just wanted to mention that. And then I'll pass it on to Ms. West.
Yeah, so for the Ravenna Rocks concert that we had this year, the city decided to set up a booth downtown. We handed out free snow cones. I am so thankful for the volunteers that came out. The neat thing for me is we had volunteers from all aspects of the city that showed up and helped out. So we got to meet and talk to a lot of employees that I probably wouldn't run into sometimes. So we had a really great time together. We were supposed to stop at like 1, and we stayed till 5. Because we were having so much fun handing out snow cones. The other thing we were doing is I brought a board that said Ravenna Rocks, and I was having people, in order to get a snow cone, they were writing on a Post-it why they thought Ravenna rocked. And that was really great to hear from our city. I think a lot of times we are so focused on the negative things. It was really neat to see kids and adults come and tell us things that they really enjoyed about Ravenna. So I need to find a way. I ran out of room. That's how much positive feedback we got. So I need to find a great way to display that. We are going to be carrying that over to the Balloon Affair. So I sent an email out to employees today for anyone that wants to join us for the Balloon Affair. We might try popcorn. I think snow cones in October or September is probably not the best idea. The bees, I'm worried about the bees. So we're going to do that. So if anybody's interested in hanging out with us and just talking to residents and talking to people, we really did have fun for Ravenna Rocks. I do want to add a quick thank you to the amazing gift for the trees. I think that's something that we all really take for granted, and it's going to be so neat to see those come in. So to the anonymous donor, thank you so much. It's a great gift to our city, and I wanted to add that as well.
Thank you. Dr. Kelfi.
I wanted to talk about the paving on Main Street. I just wanted to acknowledge that it has been an excellent project. Our contractor that worked on it and the city that worked on coordinating with them, it has come out just great. As a driver just like you, I mean, when you go on it, it is paved great. The painting of the lines, the intersections, the turns, excellent. It is quite a quality job and was done with very little disruption to the city, and the city coordinated a lot with that. And I'm just really thankful because we have talked about that for multiple years. When was this going to get done? And it's done, and it's done very well, and I wanted to acknowledge that. The other item that I had was, I know we've talked a lot about flooding in the area of Riddle and Liberty and Woodland. I want to say calls of distress from residents continue to come in regarding this. Today, we received an email from a resident at 725 Riddle who described almost exactly what Mrs. Haynes described at her house. 3 separate floodings, the January one, the 2 in August, thousands of dollars in losses at her house. And her question is, what can we do to stop this from happening in the future? And it's this question that is being echoed by a number of people in that area. And I'm at a loss for words, except to say how serious I feel it is for the residents of Ward 4 and getting a solution to this problem. And when personally they talk about what's happened, it is heartbreaking. It is a difficult, difficult situation. And I feel that we've got to get a better solution to it. We have to be able to resolve this in some way. Just wanted to put that out there. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Calvin. Mr. Moskin.
I have no comments this evening.
Mr. Maravich.
Oh, no comments.
Mr. Harper.
Yeah, I'd also like to just add that watching fireworks from downtown was very pleasant to see again. It was exciting. You could see the excitement on the families and the kids, and I'd like to see that continue if possible. I'd also like to follow up, Mr. Calfee. I did have a call from a resident today, still in regard to flooding issues. It's nice to see Mr. Finney doing the footwork and trying to solve these problems, and I just look forward to continued updates on what we need to do as a city to address this or work towards solutions to fix these. And I know there's nothing simple about it, and it's all going to take time, but I think the residents now, we can tell them that we're actively researching and trying to find solutions to these problems to fix at some point. So, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Mayor Seaman, your remarks for tonight.
I have the same feelings that Dr. Calfee has about the flooding situation, and it's taken all the fun out of the new road, the downtown look, the events that we put on, because they're not the only ones that starts to look out the window when you start to hear it rain. I had flooding at my house, not to a degree that I had any serious damage, but we had 4 inches at our place with that. But the thing that's frustrating is this is not something we can go out and fix tomorrow and say everything's going to be all right. If this happens again, it won't come in your house. I can't say, I'm not going to lie to people when I know that is not right now the outcome. We get that, but we do need to attack it with some degree of speed with it. And, Bob has been working on this regularly. Our crews have been out working. They still have their other jobs to do, and those have to be taken care of with that. We need to move this along as quickly as we can. A couple of other things. A good thing, we had the ribbon cutting for LG3 or LG Chem last week, and Mr. Finney and Mr. West and myself were invited to participate in that, and the 2 gentlemen were able to take a trip to Cleveland. They had a banquet up there for the people. They treated us with a great deal of respect, an appreciation for being able to work together. I think Wes knows everybody by their first name on this. Bob has made sure everything goes through. The biggest thing we had was the electricity, to the best of my knowledge. And we got that resolved. But they seem very appreciative. They're talking about the figure being hired there at around 100 at this particular point in time, and they're even talking about another building that possibly could come up. We constantly get people telling us how good the downtown looked this summer. Flowers are starting to show their wear at this point in time, and I hope they hold out till we can get the balloon affair in. When you plan annuals, there's a lifespan on that, and I've been really pleased with how the city's done maintaining it as it is. So we're very appreciative of all of the comments. With that, of course, the balloon affair is coming up in a week or two. We were so successful with the downtown planning and the response of the citizens that we're now stuck with trying to spruce up Christmas. So we have a committee that's working on buying. We have some money left, some things to improve the situation there. One of the things we're going to do is, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, we're going to look at planting 2 trees, Christmas-type trees. We're looking at putting them in the area where the sign is, one on each side. And as these grow, they aren't going to solve the fragrance quality that people want to see. But there is some thinking going into how we're going to lay this out and continue to improve the area. We also are interested in seeing what we can do for Christmas with the property across the street that presently NDS owns, but we're going to be working with them so that that can be part of the Christmas situation. I have had people comment on how nice that looks over there. So we've had a lot of good things, but we've got some challenges. And our constituents have a right to be concerned. And we have a charge to try and get as much in place as we can to prevent this from happening again. But I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we reached the end. We made it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will see you next month. This is the resolution.